Part 55. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 545. Han Qian. Sul Yang. These two guys are well-known bastards in the Glory Group. Needless to say, Han Qian. Many people know that Sul Yang used an ashtray to blow Lin Zongheng's brother-in-law's head. Sul Yang lit up a cigarette and put throwing the lighter to Han Qian. He looked at Tang Wei huddled in the corner with contempt and disgust, and said with disdain, "Stop fantasizing. The surveillance video here will disappear as completely as your hair in a moment. I just can't figure it out. How can you be willing to beat Yang Lan?" Despite this, Tang Wei still did not beg for mercy. He stared at Sul Yang with cold eyes and gritted his teeth. "Luo, don't be proud. Even if you two kill me today, I will not agree to divorce. As long as I don't divorce, I can catch Yang Lan." Sul Yang frowned, squatted in front of Tang Wei and frowned. "It seems that you are used to being violent towards Yang Lan, right?" After saying this, he slapped a big ear of melon seeds on the side of Tang Wei's face. Tang Wei spat out a mouthful of blood-streaked saliva and said viciously, "What man doesn't beat his wife who can't beat her? I don't believe you two can guard Yang Lan 24 hours a day. Let me tell you, Yang Ian's house belongs to me, and there is something on the real estate certificate I can live in my name, but if you two dare to go in, I will sue you for trespassing. Break into a private house? Bang. Another slap. Sue me? Bang." Slapping him again, Tang Wei smiled instead of getting angry. "Ha ha ha, kill me. If you two kill me, I will let you go to prison and taste the loss of freedom. Ha ha ha. Do you want me to tell you how I beat Yang Lan before? You guys. Do you like her? Do you want me to tell you what Yang Lan looks like in bed?" Sul Yang lost his patience, stood up, stretched, and yawned lazily. "You don't think that the two of us have never killed anyone, do you? I'll go get some gasoline in the car and light it for him." Han Qian shook his head. "Don't worry, just hold his hand holding Sister Yang." Sul Yang glanced at Han Qian in confusion, then squatted down and punched Tang Wei in front of him. He grabbed his right hand and pressed it on the cold ground. Han Qian took a step forward and took out the fire extinguisher from the fire hydrant. Weighed it in his hand and said calmly, "Tang Wei, right? Just bear with it and you'll get used to it." As soon as he finished speaking, Han Qian raised the fire extinguisher and hit Tang Wei's right hand. The guy let out a wail that echoed throughout the underground parking lot. Sul Yang glanced at the grandson's right hand and frowned. "Li Dongsheng, can you do it? If you can't do it, I'll do it." Tang Wei was scared. He thought that as long as he was tough, the two young people would feel guilty. He never expected that he would meet two madmen, complete madmen. In such a short time, he had already seen two madmen. A car passed in front of them. Weren't they afraid that someone would call the police? Han Qian handed the fire extinguisher to Sul Yang in confusion, and the latter took it, holding the fire extinguisher with one hand and pointing to the edge of the bottom of the fire extinguisher with the other hand, smiling. "I'm going to hit it here." Tang Wei was frightened and looked at the sharp edge at the bottom of the fire extinguisher. Not to mention the bones, even the head could be split open at this moment. He begged for mercy. "I was wrong. I really know that I was wrong. Two fathers and my son know that they are wrong. They won't dare to do it again, and they won't dare to do it again in the future." Sul Yang growled without even looking at him. "You held it down." Just when Sul Yang raised the fire extinguisher and was about to throw it down, someone came over. "Han Qian? Sul Yang? You too? Ah." With a confused inquiry and a scream full of fear, Han Qian and Sul Yang closed their eyes at the same time, turned around and stood in front of Tang Wei and looked at the two people who came to make trouble. Gao Xingai's eyes were full of doubts and regretfully, Sun Yazi had already hidden behind Gao Xingcheng. She saw the man with blood on his face, and also saw Sul Yang preparing to hit the man's hand with a fire extinguisher. Han Qian blocked Tang Wei in front of him intentionally or unintentionally, and frowned at Gao Xingcheng. You have recognized the wrong person. I am not Han Qian. Gao Xingii was slightly confused, then he suddenly woke up and said continuously. Yes, yes, I recognized the wrong person, please be busy. Gao Jingxing didn't want to be involved in this kind of mess, so he turned around and left with Sun Ya without any regrets, but at this time Tang Wei shouted for help. Is it Vice President Gao? Vice President Gao, save me, they too want to kill me, I am Tang Wei. Vice President Gao's body trembled, but he did not turn his head, but Sun Ya, who was a wealthy person, could not hold back the curiosity in her heart and exclaimed. Tang Wei? Yang Ian's husband. After saying this, Gao Jishi stepped on the toe of Sun Ya's shoe hard. The woman knew that she had said the wrong thing and did not even let out a groan. Gao Jishi wanted to leave quickly now. He really knew this Tang Wei. It should be said that many people in the company know him. He used to be one of the executives of Honor Group. At that time Yang Lan was just a small clerk. Han Qian turned around and kicked Tang Wei, who was about to get up, and then shouted to Gao Xingxing. Do you know Vice President Gao? Then don't leave. There's no point in continuing the show. Come on, tell me how Tang Wei and you met. Gao Xingxing stopped, turned around and said with a smile. Hey, Mr. Han, I still have something to do. Han Qian pouted and shook his head. No, you're okay, and so is Minister Sunday. You two just come over and block me. If someone sees me and thinks I'm killing someone here, you can be a witness for me. Now Gao Jinshi was harmed by Han Qian in the same way as Wei Tiancheng. Lu Shenga, a suspicious guy, thought that he and Han Qian were hiding something from him, and now he and Gao Jinji were not as close as before. Furthermore, Gao Jingcheng said before that he would not betray Lu Shenga no matter what, but at that time he had not received the shares and had to rely on Lu Shenga to survive. Now he no longer needs it, so those words were treated as farts. Gao Xingcheng sighed helplessly, stepped forward, glanced at Tang Wei sitting on the ground, and sighed. He was also a glorious person before. He was one of the founding heroes. Logically speaking, he came to the company earlier than me. At that time, Yang Lan was similar to Yao Xue now. He had some ability, no background, and no appearance. No one paid attention, and then this guy was suddenly imprisoned. Yan Qingqing suddenly established a general department, and Yang Lan became the minister. Han Qian asked softly. Huh? I'm curious. Sister Yang was pregnant when he was imprisoned. Gao Xingcheng shook his head slightly, and Sun Ya spoke in a low voice. Mr. Han, you are right. At that time, Yang Ian's mental state was so tortured that he was in a trance. I remember that he beat Yang Lan when she was pregnant, and she was imprisoned not long after that. Oh. Han Qian nodded in realization, and then said again. Vice President Gao wants to save him. As he spoke, Tang Wei suddenly stood up and ran, but before he could take 2 steps, he stumbled and fell to the ground. Sun Ya retracted her legs very naturally. Han Qian stepped forward and grabbed Tang Wei's collar, holding it with one hand. Raised his leg and kicked Tang Wei in the face. Sun Ya was already frightened. Gao Xingcheng frowned and sighed. Young Master Han, you have been a bit too aggressive recently. You should relax a bit. Han Qian ignored Gao Jingxing and raised his leg for the second kick. As a result, his foot was stepped on by Sul Yang. He shook his head at Han Qian. Han Qian ignored Sul Yang and kicked Sul Yang's leg away. Next move, Sul Yang grabbed Han Qian's collar and threw him a few meters away, saying angrily. If you wake up, can you beat him to death? Han Qian seemed to be on top. He found that this feeling was so good, he stepped forward and pushed Suliang away and said indifferently, "Don't worry." Suliang raised his fist and punched Han Qian in the face. He stepped forward and grabbed Han Qian's collar and whispered, "Sister Yang is here." At this time, neither Gao Jishi nor Sun Ya noticed that Yang Lan was standing not far away. Gao Jishi looked at Suliang in surprise. He had always thought that Suliang was Han Qian's follower and a tool raised by Han Qian. At this time, he knew he was wrong. There are only a few people in the city who can punch Han Qian in the face and get away with it. Han Qian gradually became sober. Looking at Yang Lan standing in the distance, he took a deep breath, shook off Suliang's hand, took out his mobile phone and called Tu Kun. The call was quickly connected, and the little girl was excited. "Road. Uncle, my father said that you are very busy and don't let me disturb you. Are you done? Bring your aunt and uncle and let's go swimming. Tu Kun, do you remember the little Lolita who brought you to the company to meet? Yang Bai. Remember? Aunt Yang Ian's precious daughter, the little girl is very cute. You asked your father to send some reliable people to protect her 24 hours a day. I'm worried that she will be in danger. Okay uncle, I will take you to the kindergarten now. Well, my uncle still has something to do. I'll take you out to play when I'm done." After hanging up the phone, Han Qian stepped on Tang Wei's chest and walked towards Yang Lan. Suliang followed Han Qian and it was only then that Gao Jixi realized the existence of Yang Lan, but he didn't dare to go over. Han Qian stepped forward and lowered his head. Head whispered. "Yang." Snapped. A slap fell on Han Qian's face. Han Qian covered his face with confusion in his eyes. Yang Lan waved his hand and slapped Suliang again on the face. Suliang looked guilty and lowered his head. Silently. Han Qian covered his face and looked at Yang Lan, questioningly. "Sister Yang, are you hitting me?" Looking at Han Qian whose eyes were a little moist, Yang Lan, who didn't even cry when his hair was pulled, couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward and hugged Han Qian's arms, choking in pain. "Why are you so stupid? He is a scumbag, a trash. He has ruined my life. Do you still want him to ruin your two lives? Do you too want me to live with guilt for the rest of my life? Qian Liang I know you two care about me and are venting your anger on me, but why don't I worry about you too?" Han Qian was relieved. Yang Ian's slap in the face did not hurt Tang Wei at all. All her heart was worried about these two impulsive young men. Han Qian lowered his head and whispered. "Sister, I know this will cause trouble, but I can't control myself. I think of him bullying you, and I want to cut him into pieces." Han Qian choked and nodded. I know everything. I have filed for divorce and will be freed soon. After the divorce, I will apply to go to the branch office and take Bai Bei out of here. No. I'm going to ask Tu Xiao to throw him into the sea and feed him to the fishes. I'll go make deals with the city bureau and the Yamani R. No. Han Qian, be obedient. Suliang also spoke. Qian listen to Sister Yang, if things get over today, there will be no tomorrow. Yang Lan and Suliang persuaded Han Qian to leave. Gao Xingcheng looked at the three people leaving, then looked at Tang Wei who was on the ground like a dead dog, sighed feebly, and said softly. "Xiao, do you think this is retribution?" Sun Ya shrugged and said calmly. "No, if I were Yang Lan, I would castrate him in the middle of the night. I'm scared of you." When Gao Fuling and Sun Ya were about to leave, a Volvo stopped in front of them. Gao Fuling frowned for a moment, then turned and looked at Tang Wei who was lying on the ground. His face instantly turned grey and his head was lowered. Pulling Sun Ya to speed up the pace. But he was still slow. Lu Shenga opened the car door and shouted at his uncle's back. "No matter what, you are my uncle, so you won't have to run away in a hurry when you see me." Gao Xingcheng turned his back to Lu Shenga and replied coldly. Director Lu, I'm not in good health recently and I have to rest for a few days. I don't have to interfere with some things, but I can't pretend I didn't see them. Lu Shengge curled his lips and shrugged. Thank you for beating me, uncle. Hee hee. Lu Shengge looked at Gao Xing's back with disdain, and the female assistant beside him whispered. Director Lu, Gao Jingcheng seems to have turned against him. Lu Shengge laughed after hearing this. If I give you 12% of the shares, you will develop a bone. Tang Wei gives this to you. You can do whatever you want with it. Just control it. I will be useful. I see. Lu Shengge sighed, stretched out his hand and patted his assistant's buttocks, sighing. After all, you are no better than Yates. She can always guess my next words and know what I am frowning and irritated about. What a pity. She ran away. The female assistant said nothing. She wanted to be the second Yates because she knew that Yates now had much more money than that Wu Si-Quan. Lu Shengge taught her everything Yates had to offer, which was more like the second Yates. The second Yan Qingqing, or Yan Qingqing, is more like Yates' successor. Pity. Both women are related to Han Qian. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 546. At the door of the general department, Miss Yang kidnapped the three of them. Yan Qingqing looked at Han Qian, who was lying on the sofa pretending to be dead, and then at Yang Lan, who was seeking comfort in Jijing's arms. In desperation, she could only ask Su Liang what happened. The security guard had already reported it to her, but she still wanted to know the details. Su Liang gave an overview, and Yan Qingqing said angrily with a livid face. He should have been sent to prison in the first place and would never be able to get out. A dog cannot change his habit of eating shit. After the words fell, Han Qian, who was pretending to be dead, spoke. Mr. Yan, you are right. I really want to put her in a cage with Toad or Gao de Peo again. I will ask these two brothers to take good care of her. Yan Qingqing frowned and looked at Han Qian. Brothers, where are you from? Be careful what you say in the future. Han Qian continued to pretend to be dead. There was silence in the office. After about 5 or 6 minutes, someone knocked on the door of the office. Li Li came. Su Liang grinned at his wife. Li Li glared at Su Liang and whispered. I watched the surveillance video, but I didn't even know that I would drag him to a place where no one was around and then do it. After saying this, Li Li approached Yan Qingqing, bent down and whispered a few words in her ear. Yan Qingqing exclaimed after hearing this. What? Gao Zixi asked you to come? Li Li nodded. Yes. Everyone frowned in curiosity. Han Qian also sat up and asked what happened. Yan Qingqing sighed and told everyone that after they left, Lu Shengge went and took Tang Wei away. The message was sent. Hearing that eunuch Lu had interfered again, Han Qian jumped up in anger and cursed angrily. What on earth does this old eunuch want to do? Is he humming sick? He is indispensable for trivial matters, and he is always running around without trivial matters. Yan Qingqing glared at Han Qian angrily and scolded him in a low voice. Be careful what you say. It's not without reason for Lu Shengge to intervene. Tang Wei used to be one of the top executives of the company. He managed the previous planning department. He was an indispensable talent in the creation of glory, and he was also a scumbag. Now, apart from me, the people in the company are high-performance people. Director Qian is frantically recruiting talents. Qian Wan has established a relationship with the Yamanman. Lu Shengge will definitely not miss Tang Wei. Han Qian ignored Yan Qingqing and turned to look at Jijing, who shook his head in front of his eyes. Eldest nephew, forgive me for being unable to help. This scumbag was no longer around when I came to the company. If you follow what Mr. Yan said, congratulations, you have met your match. Han Qian whined and fell on the sofa, moaning feebly. If I had known, I would have killed him directly, and then called Feng Lun and asked him to admit that Kui Li killed him. If I had been more decisive in my killing, there wouldn't be such a mess. Suliang nodded vigorously. You're right. Hearing Suliang's voice, Han Qian sat up and covered his face and said angrily. What the hell, you didn't hesitate at all when you attacked me. I feel like my mouth is broken. I need to pay for it. I'm going to get an ice pack. Li Li trotted out of the office, while Han Qian lay on the sofa and whispered. Tang Wei, Lu Shenga, tisk tisk tisk, my life may not be boring, but I don't want to play with this kind of scum. Although Lu Shenga is mentally ill, this guy, he is not as good as Lin Zongheng. Lin Zongheng is a turtle. Mr. Yan, give me an evaluation of Bastard Lin. I don't know anything about him. Do you think I can get Feng Lun back now? As soon as these words came out, the eyes of several people in the office became nervous, and they shook their heads at Han Qian in horror, especially Yang Lan. She was so anxious that she didn't know what to say, so she grabbed Ji Jing's arm with both hands and begged. She shouldn't let Han Qian do this. Han Qian ignored several people and took out his mobile phone to dial an overseas number. This time the number was empty. Han Qian hung up the phone helplessly and smiled. I changed my number and can't find it. Buzz. The call came, the network number. Han Qian pressed the connect button and smiled. I miss you so much, old baby. I'm counting the time. If I don't call you, it's time for you to contact me. Han Qian, did you expect that I would call you? Forget it, as long as I stop someone's living expenses, you will contact me. It just so happened that I contacted you just now. When will you return to the country, help me kill someone? Am I your humming thug? Then I'm talking to Kui Li. I met a scumbag who beats women. Now he's been taken away by Lu Shenga. Can you help me? How about I report you to the hotel? That hotel will be transferred to your name in a few days, or to your favorite Aunt G. You can do whatever you want. I have a lot of things to do recently, and I can't go back. The police are squatting in front of my house. Kui Li went to the Middle East. What? Are you chasing the Taliban? You happily gave me your living expenses. Han Qian, don't force me. I'll give you a position as a criminal at the party that day, and you let Cheng Jing catch him. You are betraying your partner. What the hell, partner? They are going to kill me and Kui Li after we escape at sea. I am giving you a gift. When I have enough fun and surrender, I will say that it was you who persuaded us. You won't help me kill people. Feng Lun hung up the phone. Han Qian was sure that the guy had really changed his number just now. It was just a coincidence that he called him. The time should be very recent. In order to prevent Feng Lun from calling him, he hadn't called him for 2 months. I gave living expenses to Toad's family. Sighing and sitting up, he said helplessly. It's over. Feng Lun is no longer needed. Why doesn't this guy, why are you guys looking at me? It's actually not a big deal. It's okay for Tang Wei to be in the company, but Suliang is still there when I'm not in the company. Suliang is gone and Qianwan is here. Or even worse, there are people from the general department. Sister Yang is safe at least. I asked Tu Kun to send bodyguards over to Xiao Baibei. Although he is his biological father, he is the father. You're not as reliable as your mom, just like my dad. I have something to do, so I'll leave first. If you dare to leave, please come back, Xiao Han Qian. Yan Qingqing grabbed Han Qian's back collar and dragged him back. This guy chatted with Feng Lun as if he were friends. Yan Qingqing was really scared and worried, but before Yan Qingqing could say a few words, Li Jinhai called. He came over and asked Han Qian where the guy Feng Lun told him was. Han Qian replied softly. I don't know. By the way, second uncle, can you send that Tang Wei to prison again? I beat him just now. Have you called the police? What? You beat up that Tang Wei? He was just released from prison today, little bastard. Tell me where Feng Lun's accomplices are right now. And who are you going to give living expenses to? What is your relationship with Feng Lun? Ah. We have nothing to do with each other. Now I am using him and he is using me. It's as simple as that. Feng Lun seems to be still playing chess. I'm thinking of ways to break the game. He will probably tell me where he is in 2 days. Second uncle, let me ask you, what should I do about this guy Tang Wei? Don't beat me to death. Little bastard, please let me worry less. I won't be able to suppress you if you contact Feng Lun again. He took the initiative to contact me. Roll. After hanging up the phone, Han Qian sighed. Hey. I'm so busy. I'm going home first. I'll come to the company tomorrow to see what Lu Shenga is going to do. Sister Yang, feel free to go to work and get off work normally. If Tang Wei dares to touch a hair of yours again, I will chop off one of his fingers. There are some things I can't do. Just because Li Jinhai can't do it doesn't mean that Tu Xiao can't do it either. I went home and applied an ice pack, Liang Er. Be gentle with me next time. Su Liang shrugged. I'm going back to the general department. At Lu Shenga's mansion, he looked at Tang Wei, who was wrapped like a rice dumpling by the doctor on the bed, and said calmly, "Are you interested in returning to glory to continue working? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 547. Chapter 543. After returning home, Han Qian told Nuan what happened today while cooking. The eldest lady was wearing shorts and a vest, holding half an apple in her hand and leaning on the door frame of the kitchen. She raised one leg and put her smooth little feet against it. Door frame, frivolous way. Then you and Su Liang were beaten by him. You are brothers fighting tigers. When fighting, no one is left behind. So, you were beaten in the face. Han Qian stretched out his hand and touched the side of his face, but continued without answering, and when Nuan stopped asking questions. So you said that Tang Wei might go back to work at the honor group. If you ask me, you shouldn't have given Gao Fulai the shares you originally had. Put more pepper in it. Han Qian cut some peppers and put them in the pot. The spicy and pungent smell instantly filled the entire kitchen. Nuan turned around and ran to open the window, and Han Qian shouted, "It wouldn't have worked if I didn't give it to him at the beginning. There was no other suitable candidate. I don't think he would be on my side this time." Nuan returned to the kitchen and pouted. "Even if he is neutral, it will be of no benefit to you. You didn't ask Tu Xiao about this? He is much more professional than you." "No, I suddenly felt that Lu Shenga was really disgusting. Instead of asking Tu Xiao to take Tang Wei away, it would be better to find someone to kill Lu Shenga directly. In this way, the benefits would be greater. Today, my second uncle asked me about Feng Lun's whereabouts. I could have taken Feng Lun's position, but I didn't. When I see the man I love as helpless as a child." When Nuan sang something inappropriate, but it didn't make Han Qian's mood much better, nor did it affect him too badly. Han Qian handed the dish to Wen and said calmly, "Put away the dishes and get ready to eat. 4 dishes are not enough, and you can't eat them. No, you can eat them all." After saying this, he stretched out his hand and patted Nuan's flat belly, muttering softly, "Where did all the meat go? I won't tell you." When Nuan proudly carried the dishes and left. When Han Qian washed his hands and came out, Wen had already prepared the rice and was waiting for him. Han Qian was a little surprised and said with a smile, "Hey, why do you feel so grown up today?" When Nuan lowered his head and glanced at his chest. When he raised his head again, his eyes were full of murderous intent. Han Qian hurriedly explained. I didn't say anything about your breasts, I said you were sensible. After Han Qian sat down, Nuan bit his chopsticks and spoke softly. I think you'd better not help the Yamanmen catch Feng Lun. If Feng Lun is not arrested for one day, you can be free in the city for one day, and those guys will be wary of you for one day. Catching Feng Lun will do you no good. It's not like Feng Lun was incompetent at the Yamen gate, but now it's like you should help them catch him. Han Qian took a big mouthful of rice and said vaguely. Isn't it our second uncle? Nuan frowned and replied. Who is the second uncle? Your second uncle. No. It's not a matter of the second uncle or the second uncle. It's true that he is my second uncle. It's true that the relationship between the two families is good. But what he is thinking about now is how to explain to his superiors. Have he ever thought about Feng Lun being arrested? How about you after that? There are some things that relatives should help each other, but there are some things that involve our interests that we need to consider. Han Qian smiled, when Nuan frowned and said angrily. Why are you laughing? I know I'm not as smart as you, but you can't mock me like this, you will affect my physical and mental health. Han Qian couldn't help but laugh. In a few years you'll be like a gangster, and you're still so healthy. When Nuan was so angry that he gritted his teeth, turned his anger into appetite, and mumbled as he ate the food. I'll eat them all and let you starve to death. Come on, breathe, then suffocate me. No. Eat it. Here, eat a piece of beef. You'll be angry when you're full. Little Han Qian. What you said makes sense. My sister is not as knowledgeable as you. Please accompany me downstairs for a walk after dinner. Half an hour later, Han Qian changed his clothes and shoes and was about to go downstairs. Nuan lay on the sofa, holding his stomach and grumbling that he was full and couldn't move. Han Qian said with a bitter smile. You said you were going downstairs, and then you didn't go downstairs. Then I went to buy popsicles and didn't bring them to you. When Nuan struggled to get up, groaning in pain. I think I can still save a little bit. Then she went downstairs and didn't come back. That is to say, when I don't want to go out, don't chase me out. Once I go out, I won't come back. When Nuan squatted by the flower bed and glared at Han Qian. He took a bite of the popsicle with a glare. Han Qian stood opposite her. Covering his face from a distance, he was very helpless. This is like taking a husky out. Residents after get off work and school stared at these two people curiously. Han Qian and Wen Nuan were both well known in this community. The boy washed, cooked, and tidied up the house, while the girl did nothing and was as beautiful as a flower. Kindergarten is out, but today a large student appeared in the kindergarten class. Xiao took and held a lollipop and held his chin with one hand, sitting next to Xiao Baibei. At this time, Xiao Baibei stole the words from time to time. Glancing at the lollipop in Tukun's mouth, saliva was already flowing out, but little Tukun pretended not to see it. This is also Xiao Baibei's fault. She knew Tukun, but couldn't remember where she had met her before. Then she told the teacher that she didn't know him. If Xiao Tukun hadn't called Yang Lan, the teacher would have called the police. Xiao Baibei put his school bag on his back, stretched out his hand and took Tukun's hand, saying weakly. Sister, I was wrong. Give me a bite and just lick it? No. Little sister. It doesn't matter what you call me. I'll introduce you to some uncles later. They will protect your safety. Also, your mother said you can't eat sweets anymore. My mother can't see it. I'll tell her. When Xiao Baibei got angry, he threw away Tukun's hand and ran outside. Tukun held a lollipop in his mouth and put his hands in his pockets in no hurry. As soon as Xiao Baibei ran to the door, he was stopped by two men who suddenly appeared. The uncle frightened Xiao Baibai, so he turned around and ran back, shouting as he ran. "Sister, save me." Xiao Tukan deliberately refused to hold Xiao Baibai's hand and said proudly with his head held high, "Give me the jelly in your pocket." Xiao Baibai suddenly fell into a tangle, and he didn't know whether to think clearly. He took out a jelly from his pocket and handed it to Tukan. Tukan opened the jelly and ate it, and then said, "Give me the other one too. I saw you playing with it in your hands during class. You take me home first, and I'll give you the jelly." "No, give me the jelly first." "Just wait, I'll call my uncle." "You don't have a cell phone." "I'm going to find the teacher." "Well, okay. You owe me a jelly." If Han Qian were here, he would definitely give Tukan a slap in the face. What a big girl, bullying a kid into eating jelly. Tukan took Xiao Baibai's hand and walked out of the kindergarten. When Xiao Baibai saw the two uncles, he hurriedly hid behind Tukan. Tukan waved to the two of them and motioned for them to come over. After getting closer, Tukan pulled Xiao Baibai behind him and spoke to the two of them. "Her. My brother-in-law's beloved niece, I love her more than me. If something happens to her, you two don't have to keep your eyes on your faces anymore. I will ask Guan Yunbiao to save it for you too." As soon as he finished speaking, Tukan took out a wad of cash from his bulging trouser pocket and threw it to one of them. "We have all the basic necessities, including food, drink, and toilet. If you run out of money, tell me." The two of them bowed and saluted and said in unison, "Thank you, miss." Tukan turned around and pressed Xiao Baibai's shoulders with his hands, saying seriously, "Uncle asked me to protect you. You must also be obedient. If you are in danger or scared, just call them. They will always be at the school gate. Except for your mother, your aunt, your uncle, and these two uncles, don't leave with anyone, do you hear me?" Xiao Baibai nodded in understanding. When Tukan was about to leave, she reached out and grabbed the corner of Tukan's clothes, put the jelly in his hand, and whispered, "Thank you, sister." Tukan curled his lips and said, "No need to thank me, I'll be relieved if you just obey." Tukan walked away very freely, but she didn't know that her heart was bleeding at this time. 10,000 yuan to buy 2 jelly? How rich do you have to be to do something like this? The pocket money you just received this month is gone. How many books should I buy for Li Jiaei and how many cram schools should I enroll him in? The more he thought about it, the more distressed he became. Xiao Tukan turned his head and looked at Xiao Baibai, who was holding his two uncles in the car. He couldn't stop crying and took out his cell phone to call Han Qian. "Uncle. I have no money, I am going to starve to death, wow. I am not happy, I am very unhappy." Han Qian was confused by the girl's cry. He hurriedly picked up Wen Nuan and got into the car to pick up Tukan. After meeting, he learned that Tukan was worried that these two guys wouldn't protect Xiao Baibai, so he gave them 10,000 yuan. This will be very distressing. Han Qian smiled bitterly. If you don't have money, how can you pretend to be cool? Xiao Tukan lowered his head and said weakly. My dad said that the city is in turmoil, and my brothers are also worried about money. Aren't I afraid that they won't protect Baibai properly? Auntie, this is the jelly Baibai gave you. I'll call your dad. How much pocket money does he give you a month? Only 10,000. Han Qian suddenly turned around and glared at Xiao Tukan, and said angrily. You make 10,000 a month and then you don't save any money. Tukan said doubtfully. Why should I save money? I don't need to buy a house or pay a bride price. As for the dowry, I have already started to give it to Li Jiaei. I buy him books, enroll in cram schools, buy nutritional supplements, let him study hard, and then graduate and earn money. Marry me. What if he doesn't make any money? Then I will marry him and go home to wash and cook. What do children think nowadays? We stopped communicating when there was a communication barrier, but Nuan Nuan suddenly asked Han Chien to stop. After about 3 to 5 minutes, Nuan Nuan came back. After getting in the car, he threw a wad of bills to Tukun and said softly, "You, a kid, don't need to spend money on adult matters. If you have time, you can see Bai Bei and tell her that the jelly is quite delicious." Xiao Tukun took the money and stood up in the back seat, hugging Nuan Nuan's neck and saying softly, "My little aunt loves me the most. I like my little aunt the most. Mr. Yan is not suitable as a girlfriend at all. Little aunt, you are right. Right. Little aunt, I have my eye on a mobile phone, the latest model from Apple. Look at this phone, it's so laggy even when I open it, little aunt." Warm smile. "Oh, let's go to Zhonyang Road and have a look." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 548. A mobile phone costs more than 7,000, which Han Chien did not expect. When Nuan paid the money without blinking an eyelid, and then threw the mobile phone to Xiao Tukun. When the three of them walked out of the mobile phone hall, Tu Xiao came to pick up Tukun. Hearing that Nuan Nuan bought Tukun a mobile phone, Tu Xiao frowned and glared at Tukun, saying in a deep voice, "Didn't you thank your aunt?" Xiao Tukun said with a naive smile while holding his cell phone. Thank you, thank you. Dad, look at it." Tu Xiao ignored his precious daughter, smiled at Nuan Nuan, and said it was a waste of money. Nuan Nuan shook his head and said nothing. Tu Xiao already knew her temperament, so he stopped disturbing the two of them and drove away. In the car, little Tukun was fiddling with his new mobile phone and muttering softly. "This mobile phone has a new function, so that you and your mother's photos can be stored in it so that they will not be lost. There are also photos of your brother-in-law and your aunt, and photos of Uncle Guan. Dad. Finally, there is someone other than you and Uncle Guan to give it to you. I bought a gift." Tu Xiao looked at his precious daughter lying in the back seat and smiled fondly. "You tell Dad, it's not like I won't buy it for you. It's more than 7,000, so you can't bear to part with it. Daughter, you are still young. In the future, you will understand that father can buy you even 70,000 yuan. Tu Xiao was right, 70,000 yuan was not much for him. The business cooperation with Changxiang was still going on, and he didn't know how many times he would cooperate in the future. Tu Xiao dared to raise the price. Not to mention 77,000 yuan, Nuan Nuan asked for 700,000 yuan, and Tu Xiao had to agree with a smile. Even so, Tu Xiao was still very willing. If others treat their daughter as a baby, then we treat this person as a family member. What's the use of making so much money? Isn't it just to make my daughter happy? When Nuan and Han Chien were walking hand in hand on the pedestrian street, Nuan Nuan was holding a bunch of oversized squid in his hand. Han Chien was almost unable to carry the snacks in his other hand. Basically, each one was missing one. Jiao. He knew why when Nuan bought Tukun a mobile phone. Now that the two companies are cooperating, the closer the relationship, the better. However, Han Chien was a little bit uncomfortable with Nuan giving Tukun 10,000 yuan. After asking Nuan Nuan, this girl straightforwardly, "What does the food I gave to my niece have to do with Yang Lan? If you don't eat it, you have made me unhappy. You should have stopped eating a long time ago. Then I'll keep eating." It was like this over and over again, fighting and fussing. It was already 10 o'clock when I got home. I was so warm that I didn't want to take a shower, so I lay on Han Chien's bed and rolled around with the quilt. After taking a shower, Han Chien went to bed wearing underwear. I went to grab the quilt, and after tearing it for a while I found that the girl was asleep. Heartless. Maybe it's wrong to say this. When Nuan really has no worries. He grew up in a privileged family and was born well. Not long after joining the company, he met someone like Han Qian. After getting married, he didn't have to worry about his family. Han Qian helped him at work. Even now divorced, there are many ambiguous women around Han Qian, but isn't she still the one sleeping next to Han Qian? Wen Nuan is a girl who knows how to be content. She doesn't have too many extravagant desires or ideals in her life. If she has any, it would be to let the cows go. Honor Group held a high-level meeting early in the morning, and Chairman Lu Shengge personally presided over it. One question. Lu Shengge was the first to express his opinion on whether Tang Wei should be hired back to the company to be the deputy director of the planning department. Now Changxiang is getting bigger and bigger. The net profit in the annual report differs by 2 billion. It is not a profit, but a difference. The two companies were basically the same in size, number of people, and involved in the same business, but the difference was so huge. Lu Shengge made another big news. Last year Changxiang was still warm. This woman was running it alone, and a girl in her 20s beat you all to pieces. This year I have to cooperate with Changxiang. Without competition, there will be no progress. Internal and external staff in the company are Chinese and Korean. Qian is very capable. To put it bluntly, his ability surpasses everyone here. But don't forget, the one who lives with him now is Wen Nuan. If we can't be a leading enterprise, how can we afford it? The word glory. Lu Shengge's emotions were so high that the executives lowered their heads one after another. Yang Ian's face was pale. She didn't remember that much. She only remembered that Tang Wei was going back to the company. The nightmare seemed to be reappearing. Lu Shengge glanced at everyone, and then rode. Although Tang Wei has stains, it does not prove his lack of ability. In the early days of the establishment of Glory, Tang Wei worked hard for the company as a veteran. Now how can we bear to add insult to injury? Besides, I am telling you one thing, Han Qian also committed a crime. The record is with us. We can give a stranger a chance, why can't we give our own family a chance? First, shareholders start voting, based on the shares in their hands. If they are equal, they reject Tang Wei's return. Let's start voting now. Before Yan Qingqing and Qianling could express their opinions, Gao Jixian had already spoken. Not feeling well, please say goodbye. His move was tantamount to slapping Lu Shengge in the face, and it was also tantamount to helping him. Gao Fuling's reaction surprised both Yan Qingqing and Qianling. In fact, Gao Fuling was very difficult now, and he really didn't know how to choose. Gao Xingqing's departure filled the meeting with a tense atmosphere. Everyone can see Gao Xing's disgust and rejection of Tang Wei. Qianling closed her eyes and sighed, Yang Ian's face turned gray, and then Yan Qingqing spoke. Chairman, I think we should discuss Tang Wei's matter. Everyone in the company probably knows about Tang Wei's behavior, alcoholism, and domestic violence. At the same time, Manager Yang also serves as the general manager of an important department in the company. I think Tang Wei's return will affect other people's work. Lu Shengge said lightly. The company pays attention to efficiency, and only then can we consider human relations. If the company is no longer profitable, what impact will it have? There is another thing. Mr. Yan seems to be aware that Han Qian is violent. Has it affected the work of others? Now that the board of directors has decided, the meeting is over and the planning department is preparing to do the handover work. Dr. Lu. Mr. Yan, this is decided by vote. Lu Shengge left, and a group of senior executives also left one after another. In the end, only Yan Qingqing and Qianling were left in the conference room. Yan Qingqing looked at Ji Jing, who looked ashen and died, and sighed helplessly. Now you get divorced first, and we'll discuss the rest. Tang Wei won't stay in the company for too long. Jing Jing, please comfort Lan Lan, and Director Qian, let's go back and discuss countermeasures. Qianling nodded. In fact, this did not have much impact on Qianling, but she needed Yang Lan to be hers. In the end, no results could be reached from the discussion. In the company's parking garage, Gao Xing'ai and Han Qian were sitting in the car smoking. Gao Xing'ai could not help but say, "That's the way it is. I have no choice. The only thing I can do is that I hate Tang Wei." Han Qian nodded. "Well, I understand. You've done a good job. Just wait and see. Ask for a day off for me. I'll go out and play for a few days." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, A Huan. Chapter 549. You have a good plan, I have a wall ladder. Han Qian asked for leave, and it was not all because of Tang Wei's affairs. When Nuan told Han Qian to drive to pick up Shisai in the morning. She was returning to China today. Han Qian waited outside the airport for about half an hour, and Yu Shisai came out dragging her suitcase. When she saw Han Qian, Yu Shisai threw away her suitcase and rushed towards Han Qian with open arms. Unexpectedly, Han Qian pushed his head with his hands and couldn't touch Han Qian with his arms. Yu Shisai said resentfully, "It's not warm at all. I don't want any suitcases anymore." Han Qian smiled. "You have only been out for a week. To make up for the few days you have been away, I decided to take you to play tomorrow. Just the two of us." Yu Shisai's expression was excited, and Han Qian shook his head. "It's team building." Yu Shisai's face suddenly became unhappy, and she muttered something better than nothing. Then Yu Shisai made a small request, asking Han Qian to take her to dinner. After eating steak and pasta for a week, she felt that Chinese food was the best. It's the most on-point cuisine. Han Qian did not refuse this request. Yu Shisai's appetite was very small and he couldn't finish it after a few bites. Compared with warmth, Yu Shisai was more like a little hen, eating one grain at a time. After the meal, Yu Shisai was sent back to the company, and the two accompanying people had already taken taxis back to their units. When Nuan came home in the evening, Han Qian asked her if she had any ideas about going out to play. Nuan raised her hands and shouted that she had wanted to go out for a long time. Han Qian shrugged and told Nuan that there might be many people together. Nuan waved and said generously, "It's more lively when there are more people." When Nuan learned the scale of what Han Qian had done the next day, she regretted it a little. She kicked Han Qian's calf hard in front of everyone and whispered in a low voice, "It's not that you have too many people, it's that there are too many." Han Qian, who was holding his calf, grinned. "We can't let Tang Wei affect our mood, right? He is probably still lying on the hospital bed right now. It's time for us to have fun and make noise. It just so happens that Shisai has just returned to China. As a boss, don't you let people celebrate? Do you drive a bus or drive a car?" "I drive. I don't do this. I can't stand the smell inside. You know I'm misophobic." "You have a fart." On the bus are some employees of Glory, whom Yan Qingqing considers to be his confidants. "Since Yu Lushenga asked Tang Wei to come to the company to work, then I, Yan Qingqing, will take my confidants out to have fun. Since we have already broken up, there is no need. I'm giving you face." Those who come from the general department are basically familiar with Han Qian and others. The team building is at their own expense. If you want to come, you can come. If you don't want to come, you can rest at home for 2 days. Of course, this is only for the general department, and Yan Qingqing will not consider other departments. Suliang held his chin with one hand and looked at the awkward young couple under the car, and couldn't help but laugh. It seems that Qian's status in the family is not low. "Wife, please give me some status." Li smiled and said nothing, pretending that she had not heard the sentence and did not want to hit her husband. Yao Shui stood up and leaned on the back of Suliang's chair and smiled. The relationship between Qianer and Vice President Wen is very good. As soon as these words came out, Suliang quickly stood up and covered Yao Shue's mouth, and kept winking at the sister. Yao Shue looked at Mr. Yan, who said nothing and had cold eyes. This empress has been forgotten. Yan Qingqing opened the car window and shouted to Wen Nuan. Nuan Nuan, are you still leaving? There are so many people. Before she finished speaking, an Audi R8 roared over. The manic sound wave interrupted Yan Qingqing's words, or it may have drowned her voice. The R8 drew an arc in the open space in front of the community. The rear of the car passed by Han Qian. The door opened, and a slender jade leg was first exposed to everyone's sight. After Cai Qinghe got out of the car, Han Qian frowned slightly, wearing a red camisole and white shorts. Cai Qinghe dressed very coolly and waved to Han Qian after getting off the car. "Ms. Sir, take my car. Don't sit down." "Humph. Then come the warmth. Let us sisters sit together." Wen Nuan walked towards R8 without thinking. As soon as he took 2 steps, Han Qian grabbed him by the collar and frowned. "Why are you going? Didn't you just have to drive by yourself?" Nuan turned around and kicked Han Qian's calf again, saying angrily, "I want to ride in a supercar." "You drive yourself." "I want to ride in a supercar." "You're stopping me. I'll buy one right now if you call me." Han Qian let go, Wen Nuan cursed a stingy man in a low voice. Just as Wen got in the car, Ji Jing drove over. She didn't like sitting with other people. When Han Qian opened the car door and was about to get in the car, he found Yang Lan holding the baby in his arms. Bai Bei was sitting in the passenger seat. Han Qian smiled and reached out to pick up Xiao Bai Bei. "Let's go and take the bus with Uncle." He got on the bus and went straight to the last row, kicked little Toucan who was hiding in the gap between the seats, and laughed and cursed. "How about I put it under the car for you? I told Jiai to call you over. Why are you hiding?" Xiao Bai Bei hugged Han Qian's neck and learned to speak. "Why are you hiding?" Xiao Toucan smiled naively at Han Qian, and then glared at Xiao Bai Bei. However, Xiao Bai Bei was not afraid of the sister at all, and stared back without showing any weakness. When everyone arrived, the bus just started, and there was a burst of noise from behind the car. "Well, brother-in-law! Brother-in-law! Take me with you, brother-in-law! My biological brother-in-law!" Han Qian's face was covered with black lines, and everyone was looking at Han Qian. At this time, Xiao Toucan said, "Which aunt of mine is the brother?" Han Qian slapped Toucan on the back of the head and said angrily, "Can't you hear Li Duoli's voice?" Taking Li Duoli and Toucan with him, Han Qian suddenly regretted it when he looked at Xiao Bai Bei sitting on his lap. He would probably have a lot of fun in today's team building, but he might have to become a nanny to look after the children. After Li Duoli got in the car, the atmosphere in the car changed. This guy was very sweet-tongued and spoke sweetly. There was constant laughter in the car. Han Qian was also amused a few times. Just after leaving the city, Yan Qingqing walked to Han Qian, stood in front of him, pointed at Xiao Bai Bei in his arms and said coldly, "Why are you holding her?" Han Qian replied doubtfully, "If I don't hug her, why should I hug you?" Yan Qingqing whispered unnaturally, "I do not mind." "I mind, you are heavier than Xiao Bai Bei. Try." "I don't." Yan Qingqing glared at Han Qian fiercely, and after driving for more than 3 hours, she finally arrived at her destination. There was a man-made seaside bathing beach at the foot of the mountain. You could reach the hotel halfway up the mountain by following the stairs at the foot of the mountain. Surrounded by solid wooden planks and lush forest pavilions, Han Qian got off the car and handed Xiao Bai Bei to Xiao Yangqia, then put his arms around Suliang and Li Zhulong's shoulders and whispered, "Do you think there will be anyone in this grove at night?" Suliang and Li Zhulong showed expressions that all men understand. The 3 grown men raised their heads and laughed at the same time. Yan Qingqing looked at the 3 of them with disdain, and then Han Qian whispered. How about we go out 3 nights to catch him? Su Liang immediately threw off Han Qian's arm and said seriously. How can I, a married man, join in with you? Then Lu Zhuolong followed Su Liang's example and looked at Han Qian with disdain. Han Qian was so angry that he jumped up and yelled that the two of them were nothing. At this time, Li Jiayi and Xiao Tukan came forward to ask if they could help. Han Qian suddenly felt frustrated. Are the only people helping him now are his children? When assigning rooms in the hotel, Han Qian asked Yao Shui in a low voice why she didn't bring her husband and children. Yao Shui gave Han Qian a wink and said seductively, I feel uncomfortable with my husband. After saying this, Han Qian nodded. Sister Shui, you are absolutely right. After finishing his words, Nuan walked downstairs and walked into Han Qian and whispered. I don't want to sleep in the same room as Cai King Hu. Where do you sleep? I do not sleep. After hearing Han Qian's answer, Yao Shui held her stomach and laughed, making her teeth itch with warmth. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 550. After having something to eat at noon, Shan Shan and Yao Shui invited everyone to go swimming. If you don't swim at the beach, it would be a waste of this opportunity. All the female relatives went to get their swimsuits. Lu Zhuolong got up and carried the parasol. He ran outside, Su Liang followed closely behind. When the women arrived at the beach, the two guys held up parasols and even set up the barbecue stove. Jiayi and Li Er also appeared beside Su Liang. Han Qian sighed helplessly and said helplessly. Mr. Lu is here to see Sister Yang. Su Liang, why are you in such a hurry? And you two little bastards? Lu Zhuolong said seriously. As a man, I can't watch my close friends and relatives being burned in the hot sun. Su Liang said immediately. I have to grill skewers for my wife. Han Qian sighed helplessly and walked up to the two grandsons and just sat under the umbrella. Lu Zhuolong let out a roar, which scared Han Qian to get up quickly and said angrily. You're quite old. Are you having convulsions? Lu Zhuolong glared at Han Qian. This is a chair for Lan Lan. That's a lot of chairs. That one belongs to Xiao Baibei, Xiao Yangqia, Shan Shan, De Qianer, and Sister Yao. Seeing Lu Zhuolong's stubborn look, Han Qian gritted his teeth and growled in anger. You said just now that you don't want your beloved relatives and friends to be burned. Why don't I count as a member of the general department? I don't count as your beloved relatives and friends. It doesn't count. Look at how worthless you are. My pleasure. Han Qian was so angry that he walked to Su Liang's awning and was about to sit down when Li Duoli screamed. Han Qian was frightened again and put his foot on Li Duoli's waist and said angrily. What are you yelling about? Brother-in-law, there is a bag of ice under your butt. Aren't you cold? After saying this, Han Qian felt something under his buttocks, which was all because of Lu Zhuolong's anger. Han Qian turned around and went to the hotel to change his pants. When he came down, he found that there were more people in the awning. Han Qian walked in and said doubtfully. Why are you here? Wan Fang squinted at Han Qian, and then regarded Han Qian as nothing. Taking the grilled skewers and taking a sip of beer, Yates raised his head and smiled at Han Qian. Come here with Si Guan to join in the fun. When Yates raised his head, he revealed a piece of snow-white chest. He had never realized that this woman was so majestic before. She only discovered it when she was wearing a swimsuit. Han Qian moved his eyes away and happened to land on Tangjao. This was like poking a hornet's nest. Tong Yao picked up the iron stick and was about to poke Han Qian. What are you looking at, bastard? Han Qian retorted. What's going on? It's against the law to see a girl wearing a swimsuit on the beach. Han Qian's righteousness was of no use to Tong Yao. It could be said that Han Qian was ignored again. Han Qian knew very well how Tong Yao came about, and how Wanfang came about. Han Qian also knew very well. He just looked at Tong Yao and Wu Siguan sitting together. Han Qian always felt weird. Sudden. An idea flashed in his mind. Han Qian glared at Wu Siguan and growled. Wu Siguan. I have to ask you something. How did you and Tong Yao meet? Just when Wu Sijuan was about to speak, Tan Jiao took her hand and stood up to go to the beach. After Tan Jiao left, Li Duoli whispered. Brother-in-law, I feel that teacher Tong is full of hostility towards you, but if you look closely, you seem to be acting like a little woman. You won't even let teacher Tong go, right? Han Qian glared at Li Duoli. If you don't want to play, go home now. Look, you get irritated when you are joking. No wonder Sister Wan Wan says you are petty. Wan Fang. What are you calling mom for? I beat you to death. Han Qian stood up and rushed towards Wan Fang. Wan Fang rushed towards Han Qian without any fear. In an instant, the awning became a mess. Lu Zhuolong stood up to protect his 3-acre land. Slowly, the two of them stepped out of the awning. The shed reached the beach, and while Wan Fang was not being taken advantage of, Han Qian kicked her in the leg. The girl cried out and fell down on the beach. Just as she was about to get up, Han Qian sat on her back, grinning ferociously. Road. You are teasing me? Who should I call mom? Wan Fang kept teasing Han Qian while struggling. You have so many mothers-in-law, and I am the only one missing. Snapped. A slap was placed on the back of Wan Fang's head. The next second Wan Fang exploded and struggled to turn over. Han Qian gang rolled down on the beach. Her legs clamped Han Qian's neck. Han Qian grabbed Wan Fang's legs with both hands and said angrily. Hey? You can't afford to play, so you lock my neck. I'm acting like a gangster when you do this. Wan Fang quickly let go of Han Qian. Just when Han Qian thought the matter was over, his lower body was suddenly caught. Han Qian instantly turned into a chicken and screamed for mercy. Wan Fang chuckled. Come on. You're throwing me. Call mom. Let go, let go. Call mom. Wan Fang, oh. Under the awning, Suliang covered his eyes and looked shamelessly. Why do these two guys have no bottom line? Is this a joke? It ended with Han Qian apologizing and admitting his mistake. When Han Qian returned under the awning, Yang Lan and Yao Shui came back. Sister Yang was wearing a sky blue floral swimsuit, and her lower body was wrapped in a gauze-like skirt after coming ashore. It was full of exotic flavor. With her hot figure and appearance, Han Qian was a little surprised, but then he heard a drooling sound in his ears. At the sound of the voice, Han Qian closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He stood up and walked towards Lu Zhuolong, blocking his sight intentionally or unintentionally. Lu Zhuolong shouted angrily in a low voice. You start driving for me. Pushing Han Qian away, Lu Zhuolong stood up and pulled over the sun chair to flatter him. Lan Lan, sit down. Are you tired? I've prepared coconut juice and sunglasses for you. Yang Lan took the coconut that Lu Zhuolong got from somewhere and whispered thank you. Yao Shui pouted. Deputy Lu, where's mine? After the words fell, Suliang continued. Shui, don't you understand Vice Liu's virtues? Can he prepare it for you? Come on, let's have a drink together, brother and sister. Yao Shui curled her lips at Lu Zhuolong, and then Han Qian said doubtfully. Why are you two back? Where are they? Yao Shui grunted, opened a bottle of beer and drank it. Yang Lan, who was wearing sunglasses and drinking coconut milk, laughed. They were quarreling over there. There was a diving platform over there. Teacher Tong and Jijing were pinching each other. They didn't know why they wanted to go diving on the platform. Teacher Tong said whoever chooses the higher one jumps down, and the one who loses will be the winner. I washed the other party's socks and underwear for a month, but Jijing jumped 3 meters and Teacher Tong ran away. Ha 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 ha, he claimed to buy Jijing's socks and underwear for a month. After saying this, Yang Lan couldn't help laughing. Lu Zhuolong sat aside and stared at him. Suliang and Han Qian couldn't bear it anymore. They stood up and walked towards Lu Zhuolong. Each of them put an arm around Lu Zhuolong. The latter just restrained a little. Then Han Qian sighed helplessly. Nursery rhymes can really do that. Yao Shui said immediately. It's not over yet. Chang Xiang's assistant Yu said that she helped nursery rhyme dance, and she chose a 6-meter springboard, and there was a swish sound. Water came in. When Teacher Tong came back, she asked Jijing to wash her socks. Mr. Yan couldn't see it. I passed by and also jumped 6 meters, and now Teacher Tong still owes Manager G 3 meters, so we are quarreling over there. Han Qian stood up helplessly and sighed. Hey. I'll go over and take a look. Don't let anyone die. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 551. Jijing lay on the swan swimming ring, wearing a black swimsuit that made her look even plumper. Wen very smartly chose a swimsuit with lace flowers on the chest to cover up the shortcomings on the chest. Yan Qingqing pointed at Springboard, shouted to Warmth. Warm you, please be happy. If you don't jump, Teacher Tong will wash Jingjing's socks and underwear for a month. Nuan lay motionless on the 3-meter platform and shouted to Yan Qingqing. Yan Hu, shut up. If you have the ability, come up and jump. You owe us 3 meters. Wan, grab Teacher Tong and don't let her run away. Nursery Rhyme sat on the shore and shouted to the Warmth. Vice President Wen, close your eyes and jump down. Nuan was furious. Then why don't you jump? I and Shisai will give you the trouble you caused, oh. With an exclamation, Wen was kicked off the platform by Yu Shisai, and fell into the water with a thud. Yan Qingqing dived into the water like a pink mermaid, and the Wen she caught in the water came out of the water in the blink of an eye. Wen Nuan was knocked down and waved his arms in a daze, breathing heavily. After regaining consciousness, he kept talking to Yu Shisai on the platform. He couldn't understand the specifics, but he was definitely swearing. Nursery Rhyme on the shore spoke guiltily. Are we even? Jijing shrugged and nodded. When everyone thought that the matter had calmed down, Cai Qinghu saw Han Qian walking over. She suddenly had an idea and made a suggestion. How about we play something exciting? Whoever jumps off the highest and splashes the least will have the final say. How about the loser calling the winner Qian or sister-in-law? Yu Shisai, who had just jumped into the water, exposed her upper body in the water. The yellow bikini was very tempting. She very much agreed with Cai Qinghu's proposal and added a condition. The loser must obey orders. There can only be one winner. Yan Qingqing narrowed her eyes and smiled. I agree, but I would like to add one more thing. You and Han Qian will be alone for an hour at night, and no one is allowed to disturb you. The eyes of several girls lit up, including Wu Sijuan and Qian Wan. They also had their own little juju. When Nuan shouted that she would not play, and she was determined not to play. In the end, she was the only one who objected during the voting, and the nursery rhymes all agreed. When Nuan rushed to the shore angrily, grabbed Tanjao's neck and started shaking him. Tanjao laughed innocently, not knowing what the monster was choosing in his head. She agreed happily. When she started diving, Qianwan gave up on the 2-meter platform. Yan Qingqing stepped onto the 6-meter platform, jumped, and smiled after emerging from the water. Let's have an appetizer first. I'll be satisfied if it can crush the Warmth. Yu Shisai narrowed his eyes and smiled. Don't be proud, Mr. Yan. The girl once again chose the 6-meter platform. After falling into the water, she dived under the water and grabbed the solace of Yan Qingqing's feet. She laughed after coming out of the water. "Mr. Yan, you have to be mentally prepared. If I win, I will let you call me Master Nuan." Yan Qingqing sneered. "You think I don't dare to be 6 meters away?" While she was talking, Ji Jing had already walked up the stairs. She walked very slowly, not in a hurry. She walked 3 meters without stopping, and walked 6 meters without stopping. When she walked 8 meters, she saw Cai Qinghu jumping into the water. Her body was beautiful and difficult. Very high. Aunt Ji didn't stop, she went all the way up. When Ji Jing stood on the springboard, Yan Qingqing was already panicking, because she felt that she couldn't see Ji Jing clearly. She had never heard that Ji Jing could dive, nor had she seen it. She does any extreme sports, and Yan Qingqing knows one more thing. Ji Jing is short-sighted and has a fear of heights. At this time, Han Qian also came to the beach. Looking at Ji Jing walking onto the diving platform, Han Qian became anxious and shouted to Ji Jing, "Aunt Ji, come down here. Do you know how dangerous it is? Do you know?" Ji Jing glanced at Han Qian, her body shook, and Han Qian was so frightened that he hurried to the diving platform. Ji Jing looked down at the sea water below, she squinted, smiled, and murmured softly, "I can't bear them torturing you." After finishing her words, Ji Jing jumped down without graceful posture or desire for victory. She just didn't want Han Qian to be in trouble. The water splashed everywhere. Yan Qingqing and Cai Qinghu, Yu Shisai dived into the water, and even nursery rhymes rushed into the sea. She couldn't swim, and she was anxious. It was true that they were competitors, and it was true that they disliked each other, but she was still anxious. Still feel bad. Han Qian stood on the 6-meter stand and watched Ji Jing fall. At this time, he didn't care too much and jumped into the water without taking off his clothes. After falling into the water, Han Qian was instantly surrounded by fear and powerlessness. He also can't swim. When Han Qian was dragged ashore by Yan Qingqing, Ji Jing was already sitting on the shore. Seeing the redness on Ji Jing's back, Han Qian got angry, threw away Yan Qingqing and rushed forward, trying to grab Ji Jing's shoulders. Then he held back. "Are you stupid? Are you going to work so hard to play a game? 10 meters. That's 10 meters. Have you calculated how big the impact will be after you enter the water? Do you know that you may be injured or even fractured?" Ji Jing raised her head and smiled naively at Han Qian. "My nephew, I won." Han Qian closed his eyes and took a deep breath, turned to look at the people, and growled. "Can't you stop her?" Yu Shisai whispered. "I can jump even 10 meters. Yu Shisai. I knew you were the one who picked it." "It's not me, it's Cai Qinghu." Yan Qingqing also agreed. Yu Shisai quickly dumped the blame. Han Qian suddenly felt that his blood pressure was a little high. As long as these girls got together, nothing good would happen. Just when Han Qian was about to speak, Ji Jing suddenly stretched out her arms and put her arms around Han Qian's neck, holding him in his arms. This sudden action made Han Qian a little confused. Then he found that the girls who were supposed to run away didn't react at all, and couldn't even see a trace of reluctance. Han Qian was stunned. He didn't know that Ji Jing had won it. Ji Jing hugged Han Qian tightly, their bodies pressed together. She narrowed her eyes and smiled. "You're willing to admit defeat, right?" Everyone nodded. Ji Jing narrowed her eyes and said again, Shize, take off your swimsuit." When the words came out, Yu Shisai let out a scream. "Ji Jing, what are you doing? Han Qian is still here." Ji Jing narrowed her eyes and nodded. "I know, I just want Han Qian to see it." "How about letting my eldest nephew touch it?" Yu Shisai hesitated. At this time, Cai Kinghu suddenly reached out and untied Yushisai's bikini. Yushisai let out a scream and got into the water. She didn't dare to do this in front of so many people. When Jijing looked at Cai Kinghu spoke. Mine is one piece and I can't take it off. You ask Yanhu to take it off. Yan Qingqing said quickly. I can't, I really can't. Jijing didn't speak, and finally her eyes fell on Tong Yao, and she smiled. Since I won, let me play truth or dare with teacher Tong. Tong Yan nodded seriously. You say. Jijing smiled. What is the closest contact you have with Han Qian? When the words came out, Han Qian's head banged. What does Aunt Ji want to do? She seemed like a different person today. Han Qian knew what they were playing and understood everything. What surprised him was not Jijing's victory, but Jijing's transformation. She seemed to have learned to fight and be strong. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 552. The girls looked at Jijing and Tong Yao curiously, wondering why Jijing asked this question. Yushisai sneakily took back the swimsuit from Cai Kinghu's hand, and then Tong Yao spoke. What does it mean to be in close contact? I have never held Han Qian like you do now. Yan Qingqing stood behind Wen Nuan, half of her body lying on the girl's body, and asked weakly. What about the kiss? Tong Yao shook her head. There was indeed no kiss in her memory. Yan Qingqing still wanted to ask, but Wen Nuan spoke with a gloomy face. Yan Hu, please die. Yan Qingqing was not worried and did not leave. Instead, she hugged Wenwen tightly and twisted her body. Then she let go of Wenwen and ran to the camp with a laugh. She was hiding from Wenwen and Jijing. She was worried about being embarrassed in case she wanted to ask her. I can't control my mouth when it comes to intimate contact with Han Qian. As for Yu's poems, they have gone into the water, and Jijing is a bit scary today. Jijing seemed to know something, and seemed to be targeting the nursery rhyme. Her arms holding Han Qian tightened a little tighter. With his back leaning against Aunt Ji's plump bust, Han Qian was a little distracted. At this time, Jijing suddenly opened her mouth and bit Han Qian's earlobe. The sudden stimulation made Han Qian panic. Jijing narrowed her eyes and smiled. Let teacher Tong and my eldest nephew spend an hour alone in the evening. After the words fell, Han Qian was about to speak but Jijing covered his mouth. Cai Kinghu pointed at the nursery rhyme and glared at Jijing. Why is it her? Neither Wen Nuan nor Yushisai objected. Jijing narrowed her eyes and smiled again. Shan Shan, go and pour me a glass of juice. I want it to be iced. Waner, Xiao Li, Xiao Yangxia, you are also considered the loser. Go prepare for volleyball. I will give you a chance to win. The little girls were like chickens pecking at rice, and they were immediately impressed by Manager G's 10-meter diving performance. Today's team building seems to be prepared for these girls. Beach volleyball. The girls were wearing cool clothes, and the colorful volleyball was spinning in Cai Kinghu's hands, and Han Qian whispered. I finally discovered that Cai Kinghu is good at everything except serious things. He is good at everything else. Wan Fang on the side handed Han Qian a bottle of beer and whispered. I want to be rich and proficient. You're so proficient, you won't even spend the money I give you. You give me. I'll get you 10,000 in cash now. If you don't spend it all, I'll throw it into the sea for you. Han Qian, did you do this on purpose? Where can you spend time in the barren mountains and wild mountains? Do I care about you? Beach volleyball has begun. Nursery rhymes, warmth, you poetry, Yates in a group of 4. Yan Qingqing, Cai Kinghu, De Qian'er, and Jijing were in a group. Sister Yang was the referee, and Lu Zhuolong said nonchalantly that he would be the border referee to ensure fairness and impartiality, but was kicked out by Wu Siquan. She was the most neutral one. Less than 10 seconds later, the Glory team took the lead to score a point, and Nuan's serve missed the net. Han Qian covered his face and shouted, "Xiao Nuan, where did all those things you eat go?" Wen Nuan said angrily in shame, "Shut up. Grill your skewers." Then when he was about to serve again, Yu Shisai grabbed the volleyball. The volleyball was very fast. De Chiener caught the volleyball. The colorful volleyball flew high into the air. Cai Qinghu jumped high and the volleyball hit the nursery rhyme. At this moment, the nursery rhyme was confused. Yes, the volleyball landed accurately on Tanjao's chest. Tanjao fell to the ground, and Yates rushed over and knocked the volleyball away. Her pounce made the man and boy on the awning widen their eyes at the same time, and Han Qian clapped his hands and shouted, "Nice shot." As a result, several disdainful looks were cast under the awning, and Wan Fang did not forget to add insult to injury with a sarcastic comment. "Ha, man. Han Qian, you are indeed a dog." Han Qian turned his head and took the meat skewers from Wan Fang's hand, frowning. "What did I do again? You can't change a dog from eating shit. You men just like big breasts. I didn't say you were young, but you are really not that big, huh? Let's talk about Wan Fang. Why are you so big compared to yours?" Wan Fang was so angry that she gritted her teeth, and Su Yang on the side smiled helplessly. Okay, you two start fighting each other when they meet. How much hatred there is, but I have to say that Yates is very good at volleyball, and Qinghu is also very good, but it's because of our vice president Wen that the volleyball team is now. I haven't even touched it yet. Han Qian, is she considered a mascot? Hearing the sound, Han Qian turned to look at the court. Wen Nuan was standing at the back with a bottle of water in her hand watching her teammates play. If it wasn't for the lack of people, she could have come down to drink water. At this moment, Tong Yao, because the volleyball was weak due to lack of strength. Seeing this, Yan Qingqing bent over and put her hands on her chest to mock the warmth. Little warmth, you are suitable for playing table tennis." Wen Nuan couldn't stand such provocation anymore. He threw away the water bottle in his hand and walked towards Yan Qingqing, gritting his teeth angrily as he walked. "Yan Hu, you are like a cow. If my sister doesn't beat me today, your face will be full of peach blossoms. You are not a flower. Why are you so red? You are 3v3, Yan Qingqing, I will take care of it." Nuan bypassed the net, and the next second he suddenly accelerated and rushed towards Yan Qingqing. This was Han Qian's first time watching Nuan run, and he was still running at an extremely fast speed. The next second Nuan's left foot touched his right foot. Before she fell, she stretched out her hands to catch Yan Qingqing, but missed by a centimeter. Yan Qingqing stood motionless, clasping her hands and looking disdainfully at the warmth lying on the beach, and said disdainfully, "You have grown so big for nothing. Look at the telegraph poles. They have persevered for decades and will not fall down at all. My sister will bury Tulio for you." Nuan raised his head and gritted his teeth angrily. "Yan Hu, you're done. If you win the volleyball game, you will share a room with me today." What a beautiful thought. Sudden. When Nuan reached out and grabbed Yan Qingqing's ankle, climbed up and opened his mouth to bite her calf. Yan Qingqing panicked, the volleyball was paused, everyone came over to start a fight. The slippers on Wen's feet were thrown on Cai Qinghu's face. Cai Qinghu, he grabbed the sand with his backhand and threw it towards Wen Nuan. Yu Shisai was furious after being hit, and it slowly turned into a chaotic fight. Ji Jing never came forward. She didn't like to be touched. She watched from a distance. She glanced at the fighting crowd with disdain and said disdainfully, "Childish." After saying that, she turned around and left. Before she even took a step, Yan Qingqing grabbed her hair and growled, "Teacher Tong, you are the culprit today. Who are you calling naive? Let go. Speak clearly. Mr. Yan, don't force me to be rough with you. I fear you. Tanjeo turned around and stretched out her hand to push Yan Qingqing, but Yan Qingqing squatted down instantly. Tanjeo's hands pressed accurately on Wen Nuan's body. Wen Nuan was ready to sneak attack Yan Qingqing, but she didn't know that the shadow had exposed her. The scene was a bit awkward. Tanjeo pressed his hands on Wenwen's chest. Wenwen was stunned. Tanjeo was also stunned. Then Tanjeo withdrew his hands with a strange expression and put them on his chest involuntarily. This scene made Yan, who was squatting on the ground, Qingqing laughed so hard that she couldn't stand up. Small breasts are the most painful wound in Nuan's life. Tong Yao's unintentional actions hurt Nuan's not so soft heart. When Nuan was about to go berserk, Tong Yao whispered, "Vice President Wen, papaya milk is very useful." Child. Rhyme. The low roar made Tanjeo take a step back, and then Yan Qingqing smiled. Even if you spray some Yunnan Biao on Wen Nuan right now, it won't be able to make up for her inner trauma. As soon as he finished speaking, Nuan put his foot on Yan Qingqing's back and said angrily, "Shut up." At this time, Han Qian had already returned to the hotel with beer. As long as no one was killed, he could not interfere in the war between women. After drinking the wine, Han Qian felt a little dizzy. He casually opened a room and lay on the bed, sleeping soundly. When I woke up again, I heard someone outside saying it was time for dinner. "We want a bonfire party, drinking, dancing, big bowls of meat, and big drinks." Han Qian sneered and cursed in a low voice for being stupid and saying the wrong thing. When he was about to stand up, he found that the back of his hand seemed to be hugged by someone. Han Qian froze and slowly turned his head. She was most afraid of the person lying next to her. Yushisai, this female hooligan. When he saw the woman's face, Han Qian smiled, stretched out his hand and pinched her cheek. "Aunt Ji, it's time to get up." Ji Jing was sleeping next to Han Qian. She did not leave Tong Yao and Han Qian alone. Ji Jing opened her eyes in a daze and stood up. The quilt slipped on her chest. Han Qian ran away. Ji Jing was slightly startled. Then he lowered his head and looked at the black lace tulle nightgown she was wearing. She blushed slightly and whispered, "The timid nephew. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment." After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 553. A place with many women is a battlefield, not to mention a situation where there are only 3 men present but there is no way to interrupt. Han Qian and Suliang consciously sat with the children. When all the women's eyes were focused on Lu Zhuolong, even though he was reluctant to let go of Yang Lan, he had to get up and leave, muttering softly when he walked to Han Qian's side. "It always feels weird. Logically speaking, as the deputy minister, shouldn't I sit with the minister during team building? Tell me." As soon as he finished speaking, Lu Zhuolong sat next to Han Qian, and Li Li teased in a low voice, "Mr. Lu, just be content. You will feel younger when you are with us young people." Lu Zhuolong whispered in a low voice without giving up, "You're not that old there either. Go, 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 go sit over there. Every day you see Sister Yang, you can't walk, are you crazy?" Han Qian urged Lu Zhuolong to leave the children's table. During the day, this guy wouldn't let Han Qian enter the awning. Now Han Qian is taking revenge. Unfortunately, Lu Zhuolong didn't care about Han Qian's expulsion. When he got a glass of white wine, he sipped a little and tooted. "Tisk, it's not that I'm crazy, and I don't say that I have any thoughts. I just like it. I just like it. You are young and don't understand my era. How can you have free love like you do now? When you get older, the matchmaker will come to your home to introduce me. Get married after the betrothal gift, and it doesn't take more than a month to get married. Hey. I envy your generation. You can pursue the person you like. If I dared to do this at that time, my legs would be broken. Kicked out of the house. Han Qian was born in a rural area and naturally knew some of the marriage stories of the older generation. He gave Xiao Baibei some green vegetables and then smiled. Then what? Lu Zhuolong sighed softly. Nothing more. I like Yang Lan just because I want to find the feeling of liking and falling in love. I don't need her to accept me or cooperate with me. I just like her. At my age, I don't have much interest in some things. Yes, just like it, nothing else. Su Liang and Han Qian sandwiched Lu Zhuolong in the middle. The former lowered his head and said with a bad smile. Is it really that simple? Lu Zhuolong's face suddenly turned red, he lowered his head and twisted. It would be better if we could hold hands. I will have no regrets in this life. My dad said men are greedy creatures. Little Tu Kun spoke inappropriately, and all the children, including Yang Jia, nodded. Lu Zhuolong was not angry and sighed. You'll understand when you get to my age. Xiao Tu Kun chuckled and patted Li Jiayi's shoulder. The young couple pecked their lips in front of everyone. Then Su Liang and Li Li also showed off their affection. Lu Zhuolong and others had no impact. Li Er beat his chest and stamped his feet. Cried out. My girlfriend said she should study hard and make progress every day, but she won't hang out with me. Han Qian smiled. That's right. I really don't know how a recommended student from Peking University and Tsinghua University could blindly fall in love with someone like you. Li Er squinted at Han Qian and whispered. Brother-in-law, don't you, a big carrot, have many little white rabbits staring at you. As soon as he finished speaking, a spoon flew over and hit Li Duoli accurately on the forehead. Li Duoli immediately shut up and lowered his head to eat. Han Qian turned to look at Wen Nuan, frowned slightly, and shouted softly. You're here to have fun, don't be so serious. Hearing this, Li Er raised his head with gratitude in his eyes, and then Han Qian's words made him think that his brother-in-law was untrustworthy. I'll beat him when I go home. The table was lively and no worries for the kids. Little Yang Jia used a wine glass as a microphone and insisted on showing everyone the most dazzling ethnic style. What is the kid Li Duoli not afraid of the most? You are the most beautiful cloud in my sky, how can I keep you here with all my heart? Yo-yo stay. Little Yang Jia drank a little too much, and Li Duoli did it just to enhance the atmosphere. When the mood was in place, she insisted on performing Thomas for everyone. During the warm-up, Wen Nuan grabbed her ears and stopped her. Yan Qingqing took a look and estimated that the time was almost up. The children were also full and ready to start the bonfire. The bonfire was burning on the beach, and the beer fried chicken barbecue was held in everyone's hands. There were no tables, there were only so many drinks and dishes, and there was enough red beer and white beer. Li Jiayi and Xiao Baibei were lying under a large mosquito net. Li Jiayi was temporarily appointed as the nanny. Mainly because the child didn't like the excitement, so he simply stayed to look after the child. Xiao Tu Kun wanted to be with his little boyfriend. In addition, there were the two men responsible for protecting Xiao Baibei were sitting in the dark drinking wine. It's right for the eldest lady to hand over the tasks, and the boss will pay the reward, but the eldest lady gave another 10,000. What does this mean? Does it mean that the eldest lady regards us as her own family? How can she not protect a little girl? The two brothers are also considered competent, with mosquito coils in their left hand and beer in their right hand. Everyone sat on the beach around the bonfire. The drunk little Yang Jia took Li Duoli's hand and shouted that he had finally met his soulmate. The two of them put their heads on the beach and were about to sworn friends. Yang Lan looked sideways with a small bottle of beer in one hand. Looking at the sea. Don't move. Sister Yang, please don't move. I have to take a photo. Bai is an accidental person. Yang Lan turned her head and looked at Han Qian, who was looking for an angle with Nokia's senior phone. She smiled, raised her head and pulled down the clothes on her shoulders, revealing her round and white shoulders. She held a beer in one hand and drank it. The evening breeze blew gently, and 3,000 black hairs were flying like fairies. The graceful figure and round white shoulders matched the illusion of the bonfire and the moon reflected on the sea. Yang Lan is very beautiful at this moment, and the temperament she exudes is suffocating. Han Qian chuckled. I feel it, almost feminine. Yang Lan gave Han Qian a wink, and Han Qian immediately threw away his phone, covered his chest with both hands and backed away with difficulty, sighing loudly. Wink, wink. Ah. Fairy. It's a fairy. The fairy winked at me. The exaggerated performance made Yang Lan unable to hold back the beer in his mouth, and then wiped the corners of his mouth and cursed with a smile. Bad boy, teasing me once is not enough? I beg for a beating. Han Qian walked forward and squatted next to Yang Lan and chuckled. How can there be two times? Yang Lan smiled contemptuously. Can your Nokia take pictures? Look, it's just this time. What about the situation just now? Well, phase comes from the heart. Yang Lan chuckled. Afraid I can't think about it? Han Qian nodded, lowered his head and whispered. Xiao Yangjia's song makes me a little scared, afraid that you will run away. I know a lot of people in the city, and there are as many as 800 people who call me brothers. You are the only one who treats me as a younger brother. I won't let you go, and I won't let you go either, Bai. I'm even more worried that you will be stressed. Yang Lan sighed after hearing this, raised the bottle, drank half of the bottle this time, and smiled after drinking. We are not related by blood, and we have only known each other for a short time. There is no need for you to embarrass yourself because of this little thing about me. What you said doesn't count. Han Qian is very stubborn, Yang Lan said with a helpless smile. What's wrong? Pretending to be a man in front of my sister? It's certain that Tang Wei will return to the company. I'm not afraid of him. It's just the pain in my flesh. What I'm worried about is Bai. She doesn't have the role of a father in her impression. Bai is growing up day by day, and if she knows that her father is around, I worry that she will not be able to bear it. This question stunned Han Qian. He didn't know what to do, depriving Bai of his right to be a useful father? Or instill in her the idea that her father is a scumbag. He doesn't have this qualification, and neither does Yang Lan. Han Qian turned his head and said doubtfully. Bai never asked about Tang Wei. Yang Lan shook his head. I asked when she was 3 years old, but I haven't asked again since I told her she didn't have a father. I've seen Bai's disappointment when she saw other children acting coquettishly with their father, and I've also seen her joy when she heard the word daddy. Tang Wei, I can't be sure whether he will hurt Bai. What to do next? I won't compromise. I must get a divorce. I would rather give him all my property. I also want a divorce. Qianer, there is no need to let this scumbag dirty your hands. He doesn't deserve it. I know, I won't kill Bai's father. Eunuch Lu brought Tang Wei back this time just for me. If nothing else, they have already called the police. Don't worry too much. I will take care of everything. Sister. While the siblings were chatting, the bonfire party suddenly became lively. Li Duoli performed a very popular hip-hop dance for everyone. Thomas on the beach succeeded, and he was almost planted in the beach. Yan Qingqing pulled drunken Wenwen to sing, but after singing a few lines, Wenwen was dragged away by Yu's poems and nursery rhymes, but he couldn't lose her here. Suliang took his wife's hand and whispered, probably making some promise. Lu Zhuolong was lying on the beach, holding a drink and looking at the sky, murmuring the word Lan Lan in his mouth. Yao Shui was videotaping her husband and children on her mobile phone. Qianwan and Shan Shan seemed to be studying whether to sing a song together. Everyone was having fun. At this time, Yang Lan threw away the empty bottle in his hand and stood up, squinting and smiling. A group of children, my sister will teach you how to sing and dance. Yang Lan has a great contrast in people. In the company, she is a gentle big sister, among her girlfriends she is a tolerant and gentle friend, and at home she is a strict mother, but when it comes to the wine table, Yang Lan becomes a personable person. Thought she was not Yang Lan. The passionate and fiery dance, the joyful Cantonese song The Flower Protector as the speakers were moved away, the charm of lifting the hair, and the visual impact of twisting the body, Yang Lan put aside her worries. At this moment, she understood that she shouldn't worry about Tang Wei's affairs, and she also understood that the team building this time was because everyone took her out to relax. There are so many people who care about her and love her, so why should she still worry about herself? Cai Qinghu and Yu Shisai, two girls who were not very serious about their work, stood up and joined in. Lu Zhuolong surprisingly did not drool. He looked at Yang Lan with a bottle of wine and giggled. He smiled very innocently, very innocently. Li Duoli lay beside Sul Yang and sighed softly. Young people don't know how good my aunt is, and they mistake the girl for a treasure. Sul Yang laughed after hearing this. Go, tell this to your brother-in-law. Li Duoli hurriedly stood up and shook his head. At this time, Han Qian was stunned when he saw Yang Yan's figure. When she was young, Sister Yang should also be a big sister on the street. Yang Lan is happy at this time and letting herself go. All because she still has two younger brothers who will do their best to protect her. Thinking of what happened to Han Qian and Sul Yang in the garage, Yang Lan raised her head, her eyes moist. She wanted to cry, but she couldn't. Be happy and satisfied. While Han Qian was stunned, Ji Jing came over and threw Han Qian a bottle of beer. Big nephew, be happy, there is no obstacle that cannot be overcome, and there is no day that cannot be overcome. Han Qian raised his head and drank a bottle of beer, then walked into the crowd and shouted. Brother, I'll give you some old age disco music. Han Qian closed his eyes tightly, bit his lip, made fists with both hands, raised his buttocks, and twisted coquettishly. Everyone burst into laughter. When Sul Yang stood up, Li Li grabbed the corner of his clothes and whispered. How shameful! Sul Yang gently took away his wife's hand and smiled. We are brothers. After saying this, Lu Zhuolong stood up and whispered with a blushing face. I can do this. The three adults stood by the campfire, also with their eyes closed and biting their lips, clenching their hands on their chests, swaying their buttocks coquettishly, with the same rhythm and consistent movements. Familiar and magical music played on the speakers. You are the most beautiful cloud in my sky, how can I keep you here? The three grown men shouted in unison. Yo yo! Stay! Yang Lan sat on the beach and leaned on her best friend Ji Jing's shoulder, covering her mouth and sobbing. She watched the three men open their eyes at the same time when they shouted in unison to stay, and looked at her again. Yang Lan choked up. Very nice. After the divorce, the ex-wife became a creditor. Author, Ahuan. Chapter 554. Summer rain always comes suddenly. Early in the morning, Han Qian took Li Er and Jia Yi downstairs for a morning run. The heavy rain suddenly hit. When the three of them ran back to the hotel despite the rain, everyone was still sleeping. It was very late last night, and it was already early morning when we went back to bed. The girls helped each other go back to bed. They all drank a lot and forgot about the bed. Han Qian was also worried that the two children, Li Jiayi and Xiao Tukun, would cause trouble. What's wrong? We're both underage, so we can't do anything just because we go out with him. Han Qian stood on the terrace outside the hotel and looked at the hazy mountain scenery and the sea. Li Er, who was leaning on the railing and smoking a cigarette, said softly. "Brother-in-law, which sister did you sleep with last night?" Han Qian looked into the distance and said softly. "Jiaei, beat him." With quick movements, Li Jiaei pinned Li Er down on the terrace with 3 strokes, 5 divided by 2, and then raised his head to look at his uncle, waiting for the second order. Han Qian never spoke, so Li Jiaei whispered. "Second brother, are you stupid? My uncle slept with the 2 of us last night." Li Duoli didn't resist even though he was lying on the wooden floor, and sneered. "Are you stupid, Jiaei? What if my brother-in-law secretly went to someone else's room in the middle of the night? This is very possible. It is said that men at his age are very impulsive." Li Jiaei was slightly startled, and Han Qian said immediately. "Beat him." Li Jiaei dragged Li Er back to the room. Soon after, Li Er's whining and begging for mercy were heard. Han Qian lit a cigarette and ignored it. Li Er's personality was more jumpy and he didn't talk well. Han Qian had no obligation to educate him, but he didn't want the child to go astray. It was better to talk about it in a few words. After smoking a cigarette, the door was pushed open the moment he turned around. Wen Nuan walked into the room in a daze wearing pajamas. He touched Han Qian's bed very accurately, got into the quilt and fell asleep. This time Li Er and Jiaei couldn't help but dare to stop making trouble and tiptoe to the terrace. The standard triple room was occupied by warmth. 3 men squatted on the terrace, holding the railings with both hands and looking into the distance. Li Duoli whispered 2 words. "How cowardly." Li Jiaei nodded vigorously. "I don't have the aura of a man. If I am afraid of Tucon in the future, it will be because you have not led me well, uncle." Li Duoli kept agreeing. Being provoked by these 2 children, Han Qian lost his face. He stood up and opened the sliding door and was about to speak. As soon as he uttered the word Wen Nuan opened his eyes instantly. A pair of big eyes were like 2 dark gems. "Little Han Qian, I'm going to beat you when I get home." Han Qian lowered his head and returned to the terrace obediently, raised his head and sighed. "I am ashamed to be born a human being." As soon as he finished speaking, the door of the room was violently pushed open. You didn't even need to look up to know which one it was. Empress Yasha had the most violent temper among the girls. She rushed forward and opened the warm quilt, and the room instantly became a mess. Group. Screaming, cursing, tearing, the sound was endless. As for Han Qian and Li Jiaei, they were already playing the police catches thief game on the terrace. Not long after, everyone was attracted by the sound. Yang Lan glanced at the 2 girls on the bed, and patted his forehead feebly. "Turn around and leave." Ji Jing walked into the room and strode to the terrace. She closed the door and squatted next to Han Qian to quietly watch the game between him and Jiaei. Some people left, and others stayed to continue watching the fun. Tong Yao pouted and whispered. "Childish." As a result, someone suddenly put clothes on her head and pushed her into the battlefield. Tan Jiao screamed and fought back, but encountered Wen Nuan and Yan Qingqing. The battle was about to break out. Tan Jiao, who was naturally weak in sportsmanship, fell back in panic. It pressed on Yan Qingqing's body, causing them both to fall to the ground, moaning in pain. Nuan sat on the bed holding his waist, looking like he was the best in the world. On the terrace, Li Duoli asked in a low voice. "Sister Ji Jing, I see that you are always far away from the crowd. Why?" Ji Jing raised her head and narrowed her eyes and smiled without saying anything. She held Han Qian's right hand and kept rubbing her shoulder. The strange movements made Li Duoli a little curious. The scratching of his ears and cheeks made Han Qian couldn't help laughing. "Your sister Ji Jing has a mysophobia and doesn't like to be touched." Li Duoli nodded, tilted his head and said. "I understand the truth. Those who can accept touch are those who accept it in their hearts. But what are you doing now, Sister Jijing? There is something on your shoulder. Jijing smiled and shook her head, which surprised Han Qian. He turned his head and looked at Jijing's shoulder and frowned. Why is it so red? Jijing whispered. Yesterday Lan Lan wiped her tears with my shoulder. Han Qian understood that Jijing's condition might have become more serious, or that it had never gotten better. Han Qian spat into the palm of his hand and said with a smile. I'll wipe it for you. Jijing got up and ran away, leaving Li Duoli and Li Jiai looking at Han Qian with disdain. Han Qian stretched out his hand to take away the two children. The two children got up and ran away with disgusted faces. They went to find their own happiness. Han Qian opened the door and looked at the girls staying in the room. He closed his eyes and sighed. You guys chat, I'll go out and relax. It's a place of right and wrong, so it's best to leave as soon as possible. Under the watchful eyes of the girls, Han Qian opened the door. To be precise, the door was opened by someone else. What caught his eye was Xiao Baibei, a little Lolita, who opened her arms to him. Han Qian reached out and took it. Baby, Yang Jia begged. Brother Qianer, please do me a favor. I want to take pictures with them. Han Qian held Xiao Baibei in his arms. Xiao Baibei seemed to have just woken up and was holding Han Qian's hair in confusion. Han Qian said doubtfully. Where's Sister Yang? My sister, Yates, and the others are drinking coffee and chatting downstairs. I'll leave the baby first. Han Qian looked down at the child in his arms, then at the heavy rain outside, and finally at the girls sitting on the bed preparing to play cards. He sighed silently, picked up a blanket and hugged Xiaobei. North went to the terrace. Sitting on a chair, listening to the noise of playing cards in the room, and listening to the low sound of rain, a picture appeared in Han Qian's mind. The 8 wives were playing cards, but the bird's head in the picture of 100 birds facing the phoenix was missing. Under the table was a collection of Tang Yin's poems. The 8 wives shouted that they wanted to play pai gao with him, play dice, and finally hang themselves to make him smile. Looking at the 5 girls playing cards together on 2 beds, Han Qian couldn't help but hum a tune in a low voice. I am sad and aching 6 girls are like hungry wolves and tigers. People think that I enjoy all the blessings of everyone, but in fact it is so unlucky to be empty and lonely. A scene where Tang Bohu ordered Kai Xiang is very consistent with the current Han Qian, except that Tang Bohu was with his mother at that time, and there was a child in his arms. This line from Master Xing also became Han Qian's mood at this moment. Watching Wen Nuan hugging Yan Qingqing's shoulders and laughing happily through the sliding door, Tong Yao frowned and glared at Jijing, seemingly because of the issue of playing cards. Uncle, are you unhappy? Xiao Baibei stretched out his hand and touched Han Qian's chin, which was covered with stubble. Xiao Baibei retracted his hand, and then stretched out his hand tentatively. Han Qian pinched Xiao Baibei's nose with a smile and said with a smile. Uncle is very happy. Xiao Baibei, a kid from the north, sighed and groaned. But Baibei is not happy. Many times I hear my mother call and say that Baibei is at home alone. Baibei has to do homework today, and my aunt will quarrel with her mother. Baibei seems to be a little skullbag, always being picked up by someone. Carrying it? Children as young as 5 or 6 can understand this. Han Qian sighed softly. Children from single-parent families tend to mature earlier. Han Qian held Xiao Baibei and said softly. Because Baibei is a treasure in mother's eyes, so mother will put Baibei first. But my mother is unhappy and always frowns and sighs. That's because mom is worried that Xiao Baibei will be snatched away by others and leave her. Mom is worried about Xiao Baibei and doesn't want to be separated from Xiao Baibei. Xiao Baibei nodded in understanding, and Han Qian sighed silently. Because of Xiao Baibei, Sister Yang has indeed given up many circles of friends, and basically no longer hangs out with her former best friends. Women give up everything for their children, Yang Lan terrified that the child would be taken away from me. Besides, Yang Lan is very busy. She really has very little time to take care of Bai Bei. Little Yang Jia is already very competent. How can a 24 or 5-year-old girl give up going home from work every day to take care of her niece? If you fall in love, you give up the opportunity to play. Yang Lan and Xiao Yang Jia are both trying to make up for the lost love of Xiao Baibei, so as long as the two of them ask Han Qian to take care of the child, Han Qian will never refuse. How many days can he take care of the child? Once or twice a month is the maximum. Xiao Baibei sat on his uncle's lap and swayed his lotus-like calves. He pressed his uncle's hands tightly with both hands, as if he was afraid of falling. After a while, Xiao Baibei suddenly spoke. "Uncle. Do you have a father?" "Yes." "No, Xiao Baibei." These words pierced Han Qian's heart like a sharp thorn, and then Xiao Baibei continued. "Don't tell Mom, I love Mom the most, and then my uncle and aunt. I'm just curious, Dad, Uncle, how is your dad?" Recalling the fear of being the only one worthy of the old man, Han Qian said seriously. "No. My uncle's father always wants to beat him to death and bury him. He beats me if he doesn't study, beats me if he doesn't eat, beats me if he doesn't sleep, and doesn't let me eat snacks." "Huh? Then I don't want Dad. Mom can beat me alone." Ha 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 ha. Seeing the worried expression on the little baby's face, Han Qian couldn't help but pick her up and kiss her hard. He stood up and hugged Xiao Baibei, standing on the guardrail and looking at the seaside, smiling. "We don't want it, Dad, that thing is of no use. When you get home, Uncle will take you to the mall to buy whatever you like. I want to buy some medicine for my mother." "What medicine?" "Taking the medicine will make you less angry." Han Qian frowned and smiled bitterly. When he turned around with Xiao Baibei in his arms, the scene in the room made Han Qian and Xiao Baibei widen their eyes. They didn't know what happened. When Nuan punched Yan Qingqing's forehead, Yan Qingqing was surprised. No resistance. Xiao Baibei covered her mouth with both hands and exclaimed, "Uncle Mua beats Uncle Mua." At this moment, Han Qian wanted to die. How to explain this?